National Confectionery Candy Company was there for about 27 years. My dad worked there quite a number of years.
Now upstairs over Billy and Carrier's was
And up over the grocery store was Omer Farnsworth's law office and Absalom Garden
insurance.
insurance office.
There, take care of that. That's better.
That was better than the other one.
Now we've come down the Main Street again, where it's above the Water Street. And I want to take particular notice of the watering trough there on the left. That was there when I was younger. We went over and played in the water. And
Get a drink once in a while.
get a drink. And we were talking that the water used to run over that every once in a while and have ice all over the road. Now, what was the corner store there?
On the right-hand side was one of the early buildings on this corner, of which there probably was three.
I think this was Shaw and Mitten.
Shaw and Mitten
Was it
grocery store and offices up overhead. This was a three-story building. Going up beyond, it doesn't show from this angle, but my grandfather, George Roberts, had a five-chair barber shop, a tobacco shop, pool room, billiards, and down in the cellar he had an ice cream factory and a soda pop factory.
Let's see if we can find that picture.
And my dad, that'll be in there.
Now we've moved over so that we can get a better view of the front of those buildings. Which one do you think was your uncle? You said that?
My grandfather.
Oh,
The second building on the right going up the hill. The Shaw and Mitten building on the right with a square roof, and then the next one with a gable was the one my grandfather's business was in. Going up to the fourth building, I remember my folks saying it was Green Brothers, and they had a clothing store. Then on the corner of Main Street and High Street was the old Caribou Hotel. In the background was the Bartlett block looking up North Main Hill.
now here's a picture taken from the Vaughn house yard. And it's that whole block that we've been looking at when it burned. Now, when was that?
Probably approximately 1918. In the background, up near the top of this picture, there again is the part of the Bartlett estate, the second building.
The road was wide enough there so that that fire didn't jump that apparently.
Nobody got real hot.
It did.
I remember Dad telling about they lost all their windows, and and going around the corner to the right, he lost his barn, which set where the Caribou Municipal Office is today.
Whose barn did you say that was?
My dad's.
Do you own that barn?
Well, he rented it
Oh,
for his stock.
oh. You lost that.
Yeah.
You can see the steeple of the Baptist church in the background there.
Yeah, way up in the right-hand corner.
Well, here's another shot of the same fire, and which we think was 1918. We're not quite sure where the picture was taken from, but I believe that's Main Street right there. And look at the old cars. That's what they look like in 18, huh?
Right. Model T Fords. And,
What is the rest of it? Do you know anything?
there's looks like the Dutchy Hutchison's grandfather's steam laundry, and then the bridge, the Caribou stream, goes between those two buildings, and the second building would be the Cox grist mill. James Cox's father's grist mill.
Now, is that the church we see up there right over it, isn't it? Just over the top of the grist mill is the Universalist Church.
Universalist Church. That wasn't a very...
Now we've started up South Maine. We're looking down onto Main Street, and what we want to notice here is the Vaughn house in the upper left, and George O. Smith on the bridge is the one in the center of the picture. Do you know about that other building coming up over the hill?
The smaller building between George O. Smith's grocery store and general store and the livery stable, the barn, I remember Babe Thibodeau, a barber who was Warren Baldwin's grandfather, had his barber shop in there. Across the street was the old Cox grist mill.
That would be, notice the building there, that would be the original Mittenville Bishop building.
The building with a mansard roof, so-called, fancy, that would be probably the first building on that lot.
Yeah, it looked like it. Here's another picture about the same place, but we want to notice that the Vaughn house has an L built on it up there that it doesn't show in any other picture that I have. And the store over there is, what does it say on it? Can you?
Mr. Edwards, I can't make it look like W.S.
H.A. or W. Don't know which. But my brother Claude said that George O. Smith, the one that had the store on this right-hand side here that you can't see, worked for Edwards.
Where the teams are is the grist mill, and the bridge is next, which doesn't show very plain,
Can't hardly see it.
and then the steam laundry.
And
This is looking north.
just starting up over South Main Hill. This is just another shot of the grist mill, but it does show a good picture of the bridge railing. That's the way it looked all the while I remember it, right there.
Yes, that bridge was built when we were quite young. I was going to the Sincock schoolhouse in the 3rd grade, and they were building this bridge. And I remember during the night, some tourists came down through the barricades, and I believe there was 4 people killed in that automobile accident.
While they were fixing that bridge.
What? Right.
Here's an early picture of the Vaughn house, and a stagecoach sitting there in the front of it. You think that this burned, Prescott?
Yes, seems though I remember they said this one burned. It had a few smaller fires over the years. I remember another picture before this one where the roof on the right-hand side had burned.
And it didn't have any dormers in it.
And that's right.
And this doesn't show, as far as we can see, that L that showed on the other picture in the back of it.
So it's one of the older pictures of the hotel. It probably burned around 1902. Then the next Vaughn house that was built, the square one after that, was approximately 40 years later. That one burned. in
New Year's Eve.
New Year's Eve around 1940.
I think that that little shed around back there probably was the stable for the Vaughn house. And that stable is what we made over for a potato house.
Yeah.
Lombard brothers had it as a potato house.
I remember cutting seed in there for you.
There we are. That's the Vaughn house. That shows the L on it, Prescott.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They had an L on this.
Apparently that L was put on first in later years. This was built like this. The front end was built square.
You notice in front of the hotel is what they called the hack. They used to go to the train and meet the people and bring their trunks and suitcases up, and
10-cent team.
10-cent team.
People standing on the porch there.
One of the early managers of this hotel we used to call Pop Blagden.
Yeah.
And Walter Day at another point in time later. Many people remember him.
More people remember old Pop. He got to be quite a fixture there, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
Yeah, well, that's good enough.
When this building burned, a salesman burned to death in it.
Here's some pictures taken off from the Vaughn house lawn. And it looks like they're having a ceremony or something that was on that mitten block porch. What do you think? Think it's 4th of July or Memorial Day?
Well, we've been calling some of these parades 4th of July parades, but we've had another think on the subject and think maybe they were Memorial Day parades.
No, I think that we've moved down here. We've got a parade in the making. This looks like the soldiers from World War I.
Civil War.
And then
Yeah.
when we check this group coming down, possibly Civil War veterans with the kids following behind.
Heading for Monument Park or the
Heading in
cemetery.
that direction anyway.
Right.
We're still on the Vaughn house lawn, and we've got 3 pictures here of what we call the Mittenpole Bishop Block. I don't know what the name of it is, and this is apparently the first one.
Yes, apparently another gentleman built this building, but we haven't found the correct name. Notice in front of the stores there is a team of oxen, and this is headed up North Maine.
Now, here's what we feel is the second store, and this is the one that I think burned and still got horses. Then in later years, we think that this one is the one,
That
the
was
last one there, and that looks like the dedication to it.
Yes, and it is the one about 15 years ago or 16 years ago was torn down, part of urban renewal. Joe Freem was the owner for many years. Maine Public had their office in the corner spot looking down Water Street.
Wasn't there a repair store down at the other end?
Yes, there was.
TV repairs. Yeah.
Dr. Lowry had an office upstairs.
Out Mildred, that place there. This is a shot from Main Street, and the street on the left-hand side is High Street going up there. And what about this building, Prescott?
The little building on the left-hand corner is the old Bucket Brigade building built by Mr. Bartlett for the fire department. The little building behind that, in front of the Grove, we have not found out what that is. The variety store on the corner on the right, where the band is lined up, is a Sherwood store. They sold dry goods.
Your folks can remember that.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is the Caribou Cornet Band, as we have heard them being called in the past.
And the sign said that's New York Life by Nelson. Now what we're going to do is to start up High Street. This picture is taken on High Street. It's right across the road from the Sherwood building that we just looked at. This is your grandmother's building, isn't it, Prescott?
This was my grandmother's building, so-called Bartlett building. And this is a store ran by my parents back in the early 1900s. Robert's 5, 10, 25-cent dollar store.
Let's move down and show the other picture. Here's that other picture that shows the sign better.
Yes, this is my dad, Wilbur Roberts, sitting there with a family pet dog named Pet. Probably was on a Sunday. He's all dolled up, ready for church.
Yeah. And that's a good picture of the sign in the store. 5, 10, 25-cent store. They said dollar too?
Yeah.
Now here's a page or a picture on a page taken from the book Henry. And it said that Luther Merrill built it, and it was occupied by John Arnold. But we're particularly interested here in something else. Can you explain it, Prescott?
The building apparently later was turned around. And across the way is the old Bartlett block and the Bucket Brigade building, and the horse and wagon in front of the Bartlett block is headed up High Street.
It looks like it. The High Street is running right down the back of that building.
Yes, it does. It's quite narrow there. Later years it was made very much wider.
Now here's a picture of the same building. We're up Sweden Street apparently, and that building on the right is the Clark block. The building across the road, which would be Main Street, is the Sherwood building that we saw a little while ago. Now, it looks to me that if High Street was running down the back side of that building, it would be going right parallel with Main Street. Wouldn't you say so, Prescott? Sometime, somewhere, that building had to be turned around. Now, you mentioned sometime about your dad having a barn. It was in there and burned. Where would that be located?
The barn would be in back of this so-called Caribou house at this point in time, and it would be located about where the municipal building is today.
Well, did this building here burn with that fire in 1918?
We believe it. No, this burned before that.
It did burn before that.
Yeah.
Very good. This is a scene looking up High Street. Looks like we have wooden sidewalks, and we look like we got more than a one-horse town. What about the buildings over there?
The first one on the left is the Baptist Church parsonage. The large house next to that, in my time, belonged to Dale Powers. He was one of the twins, Dale and Al Powers, and they had a large farm out on so-called Powers Road towards Limestone. The next house, the third house going up the street, was a C.P. Hussey house, Charles Hussey, and he was an early settler here and had a barber shop. He was a barber, and then he went into confectionery and tobacco and fruit. My dad worked for him at one time. The large house that you see beyond that is the Edgar Russ house when we were growing up. Before that, Carl King.
But I think I've read that Tricky built it.
Right.
I can't see anymore. Where was your house now? What? Oh, you lived in the C.P. Hussey house.
Yeah.
That was where your home was.
Right. He died and we moved up there.
Well, that's excellent. That was good. Here's an early picture of the First Baptist Church, I believe. Then you can see where they tied the horses up out back there, and you say that's Dr. Gregory's house over there. Notice the steeple. It's quite painted. And we've got another picture showing a different steeple here in a minute. This is a later picture of the Baptist church. Tell us about it and tell us about what you found out about the steeple.
You can see now that the sidewalks in front of the church are cement, whereas they were made of wooden planks before. And additions have been made to the church. Entrances on the side and on the front. Also, a porch built on to the parsonage. The steeple has been changed, and I remember when this steeple shown here in this picture was changed, that the pigeons had been roosting in there for so many years that they had left a lot of manure that weighed over a ton, and it was some job for the men cleaning it out so that they could put on a new steeple.
You think that was in this particular steeple or the other one?
Well, it looks familiar.
Oh, okay. In a picture back along, we showed this house, but now explain that where the house is in between from your place to this.
Yeah, from our place, the so-called Charles Hussey house. Then there was the Gould house. Then this house, which was built, we understand, by George I. Tricky, an early lawyer in Caribou. Then later, Carl King lived here for some time, and in our day, while we were growing up, Edgar Russ lived there for many years.
Edgar Russ was a close friend of our family. He was close enough so we called him Uncle Edgar. We used to go up there on Easter Sunday, come out of the Baptist church, walk up there, and they fed us eggs. That's when cholesterol didn't amount to a thing, because we probably ate dozens of eggs. But we used to run through that house. Have you been through that house? And upstairs there was servants' quarters, and there was bells to all the room that they could ring down into the kitchen, and the light would come on so they could go up and service that particular room.
Had an intercom all its own.
All its own. And another thing they had, I think you'd call it a dumb waiter in the kitchen, run by rope, and it would go down in the cellar, and you would put wood in it and pull it up. The finish in that house was fantastic, and it's too bad they had to tear it down. And of course today is Shop and Save Store, which would be across from the fire station. You got anything else to add?
Well, I was just going to say, this place was torn down, and it's where the Shop and Save store is today. The next house going up from that would be the George O. Smith house.